Nelson Mandela Bay is drowning in rubbish. Plastic pollution is driving an environmental crisis in the metro and threatening the poorest of the poor. We're joined by Professor Nadine Strydom from Nelson Mandela University. She's from the Zoology department. Professor, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Now, you have issued a very stern warning and went on to also state that the extent of the problem has in fact been revealed by the recent heavy rains. Just talk us through this.
Yes, so thanks. Welcome. Hello to viewers, and thank you for having me. We've known about this plastic pollution problem for a long time. In actual fact, the non-governmental organization, the Swartkrop Conservancy that I'm part of, has been working on it for a while, and myself, with my own research efforts, we've been trying to uncover the extent of plastic pollution. But the recent floods have really drawn our attention to the extent of it, and it's actually quite devastating. And I firmly believe we've got an environmental crisis on our hands, and it's not unique to Nelson Mandela Bay. It's a South African-wide problem that we're actually dealing with.
Let's talk about the extent or impact of this kind of a situation that we're seeing there in Nelson Mandela Bay.
Well, when it comes to plastic pollution, there's this general tendency to actually not want to deal with it. I've walked through communities and spoken to people over the years because I'm teaching in aquatic pollution at Nelson Mandela University. And I feel our biggest problems are related to Metro's lack of service delivery. And I think we've got this problem throughout South Africa. And it's with the poorest of the poor communities because they can't afford to pay for waste removal. Things pile up in the township areas and they don't want to live in the mess. It removes them of their dignity. And it's a terrible contaminant of the environment. And many people don't know that, disease is spread. Illnesses are spread through plastic pollution. There's well-known international literature that's telling us that plastic pollution is the root cause of some of the cancers we're dealing with. And plastic not only breaks down and releases chemicals into the environment, but plastic also carries chemicals around in the environment. And when this is ingested by animals and people, these have long-lasting effects on our health.
And government, of course, knows the dangers or the impact it has. Have you, as the world of academia, engaged government on this particular matter to say that it cannot continue in this fashion? We're constantly, especially now with the recent rains, having revealed the extent of it, that it cannot continue in this fashion.
Well, that's the thing that surprises me as a biologist and a scientist in South Africa, is this information is in the public domain. I just feel that there's a lack of political will to actually work with communities and solve the crisis. Our plastic pollution, it all makes its way into rivers, into estuaries, into the nearby ocean. It's all along the South African coast. It affects inland waters as well. And, the information is out there. NGOs are actually doing what metros are supposed to be doing. And so I can only put it down to a lack of political will to actually want to get on top of the plastic problem we have in South Africa. And we are being left behind compared to the rest of the world in dealing with plastics.
But as society ourselves, when you look at the culture of pollution or polluting, it seems to be one that is always tossed by the wayside. It's not something that becomes a priority even among ordinary citizens themselves.
That's true, because there are obviously efforts by schools and environmental organizations to teach children about plastic waste and not polluting and that sort of thing. There's national beach cleanups and efforts to remove the waste and that sort of thing. But there's a subset of society that I think don't care. They will just dump their litter and so forth. But the majority of people living in our country don't want to live in a mess. They want the municipalities to actually, because they can't afford to pay for litter removal, that should still be a human dignity that they get allocated refuse removal services. The people that I've spoken to on the ground in the townships have said they don't want to live with this mess, but they say that, the service delivery in their areas is poor to non-existent. Skips get provided intermittently, and the people walk up to the skip, but they can't even reach inside. It's so high, they can't put their garbage in it. And you add wind and, animals that are tearing bags open and wind, and you just have an entire city, messed. And it is literally, we're growing plastic flowers on our trees here.
Professor,
It's a major issue.
It most certainly is. What role can we play as ordinary citizens in the absence of some sort of meaningful intervention on the part of government in this respect?
Well, I think that, it's going to come down to political will, and we have to put pressure on politicians that we deserve, as South Africans, we deserve a better and cleaner environment to live in. We don't want to get to the point where we can no longer harvest the fish because it's our only source of food, or be able to drink the water from the nearest river or stream. We are going to get to the point where these sorts of natural resources are no longer going to be available to us because we have polluted the environment.
Professor, thank you very much for your time this evening. That's Professor Nadine Strydom from the Nelson Mandela University Zoology Department.